Happy Good Shepherd Sunday. Every year on the fourth Sunday of Easter, the gospel is a portion of the 10th chapter of John. I have a visual. Oops. So in year A, we read the first third of the Gospel of John. In year B, we read the middle third. And in the year C, we normally read a teeny tiny portion of the Gospel of the third part. But I expanded it because you can see there's a gap between 21 and 27. So I expanded it today to include 22 to 30 so that we could get the whole thing about the dedication that this happened in the temple. And the reason I wanted to do that was because I wanted to talk about the temple a little bit. So the gospel begins, that we read today, begins in the temple in Jerusalem. And so the temple was huge, and it appeared seemingly to be indestructible. But even so, as we all know, it had its ups and downs. Recall that it was originally built by Solomon about 1,000 years before Jesus. And then it was destroyed. After that, it was destroyed by the Babylonians, and all of the Israelites were sent out into exile. But the one true God stayed with the people in exile. I forgot one thing that I meant to mention, and that is that when the temple was built, to begin with, by Solomon, it was built despite the objection of God, who said that the people were more important than a building. But God relented because of the insistence of the people, who God said are the most important of all. So as I said, it was destroyed about 400 years after it was built, and the people were sent into exile. The exile ended, and the people returned to Jerusalem, and they rebuilt the temple. The temple was later desecrated, which is to say it was made unholy because worshipers of Greek gods, right, successfully invaded Jerusalem and brought their rituals to the temple, which was perceived as a way of making the temple unholy. So these Jewish rebels, called the Maccabees, fought to regain the temple, and they succeeded, and they rededicated the temple. And this all happened in 164 years before Jesus, before Christ. The remembrance of that event was celebrated in Jesus's time, and it's celebrated today, and it's called the Feast of Dedication, also known as Hanukkah. The temple would later be destroyed again in the year 70, so after Jesus's the time of walking on earth. And although this story occurs when the temple's still standing, it was written and first read after the year 70, right? So the story happens during Jesus's lifetime. The temple is destroyed 40 years after that. And then this story was written and codified after the temple was destroyed. All right. And so it was stop share. There we go. And so it was in that temple, that very temple, that Jesus is approached by the temple authorities. This temple that was built, rebuilt, desecrated, rededicated. Now it's the Feast of Hanukkah, and the authorities approach Jesus. And they're hoping to build enough evidence to detain him and get rid of him, basically. I want to just sort of briefly say that it's really important to stress that these temple authorities who approached Jesus do not represent all of Judaism. And this might not be a perfect metaphor, but just as one single United States authority does not represent all of US citizenry, so too this small group of men does not and should not be seen as the Jews. It's caused a lot of hardship for millennia. Okay, so anyway, so this small group approaches Jesus and they want to know whether he's the Messiah. Remember that this story happened in about the year 33. Then the temple was destroyed in the year 70, and this was written in the year 90. So when it's written, right, and when the people are reading this story, they have in their head this, that it was thought that when the Messiah came, he would rebuild the temple. The people hearing this gospel might well be thinking, Jesus the Messiah will come again and rebuild the temple. Anyhow, why have I spent so much time on this? Because the timing and the setting of this gospel is so appropriate. On a feast that celebrates the physical and spiritual restoration of the temple, in that time and place, Jesus restores and reconfigures the meaning of temple. The new temple is walking in the portico of Solomon on a feast of spiritual renewal. And the body of Christ, which is to say, you and me and all of us and all of creation, are collectively the new temple. That God's desire was always that the people and the creation is more important than any building or anything, any stuff. Previously, Jesus had said, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. But he was speaking of the temple of his body. Jesus did not die and rise so that we would have some sort of physical human king. Remember that after the resurrection, Jesus said to Mary, do not cling to me and my body. Jesus came to open our eyes and our hearts to a new vision of temple. We are humanity, creation. We are God's people, the sheep of God's flock. That is the temple. We hear the voice of God. In Jesus, we follow what he taught us to love and protect one another as a shepherd cares for the sheep, to heal our prejudices, to care for the earth, to share our wealth so that no one goes without, to be one with God, just as Jesus is one with God, to be a sheep of God's flock.